I bought the building they needed to finish their empire. My voice, usually a muted undertone in the sprawling noise of the city, cut like a wire in the polished quiet of my newly acquired boardroom. The name on the deed, Jade Sinclair, felt like a brand new tattoo, sharp, permanent, and entirely my own. For as long as I could recall, I was Jade Sinclair, the family's reliable shadow, not by malice, but by design. My older brother, Elias, was the golden visionary, the one whose ambitious mistakes were funded and excused. My younger sister, Chloe, was the delicate bloom, sheltered from every rough consequence. I was the steady, unseen scaffold, the one who held up the structure while everyone admired the facade. The pattern was established early, baked into the very DNA of the Sinclair Development Group and our family home. I remember Chloe's senior exhibition, a required project she'd completely neglected, a frantic phone call, and I, a sophomore with my own looming deadlines, spent a weekend revising and finalizing her urban planning model. Chloe earned a scholarship based on that design. When Mom casually mentioned it later, she'd simply said, "Chloe is the talent, but Jade has the grit to execute." It sounded like praise, but I heard the dismissal. Jade is the tool, not the architect. Years later, I was finally saving for a down payment on a small fixer-upper, my escape. I'd scraped every penny from grueling night shifts doing digital renderings before I could wire the funds. Dad called. He needed the cash temporarily to cover a vendor payment Elias had forgotten. "You're our rock, Jade," he'd insisted, the familiar line worn smooth. "Elias has the big ideas, he just needs a cushion." I transferred the money. Nodding was just easier than admitting the resentment was starting to burn. Even celebrations felt like erasure. My 21st birthday. I'd quietly arranged a small gathering, ordering specialty cocktails that Dad loved. When Elias arrived late, bringing a client to network, Mom immediately shifted the focus. "Elias always knows how to make an occasion matter," she beamed. I stood by the bar, holding a champagne flute, realizing my effort had been invisible again. But the memory that cemented my perspective, the steel in my spine, was a chilly, late fall evening in the cramped, cheap high-rise I called an apartment. I was trying to pitch a small but lucrative renovation deal, a local retail strip I was obsessed with. The rent was past due and the stress was a physical weight. I called Dad, seeking validation, maybe a contact. His response was a wall. "Commercial real estate is a man's game, Jade. You should be happy with a stable, in-house design role, safer." He hung up before I could reply. That night, the zipper on my old worn field bag, the one I carried my blueprints in, finally gave out. I didn't toss it. I sat under a flickering lamp and meticulously repaired the zipper with heavy-duty thread, the needle shaking with a quiet resolve that field bag became my talisman, the only thing I trusted completely. Then came the graduation ceremony, the master's degree I earned while working 60-hour weeks. My name was announced, Jade Sinclair, and the applause rose. I looked toward the reserved family section. 6 empty, velvet rope seats. No Sinclair, no smiling face, not even a hurried text. They hadn't forgotten the date. They had prioritized something else that day. I stopped waiting for them to show up. 9 months followed that ceremony, a clean, clinical silence. I plunged into work, buying, renovating, flipping properties no one else would touch. I didn't announce my successes. Silence was my shield. One afternoon, sitting in my beat-up sedan reviewing a property assessment outside a construction site, my phone pinged. A forward from a business contact, an article: "Rookie developer closes on downtown tower. $7 million profit projected." My photo was right under the headline. The phone exploded with congratulatory messages. None from my family. I set it down, staring at the dust motes dancing in the late sun, waiting for the feeling of pride to hit. It didn't. Just a hollow stillness. Then, the first message arrived. Not from Mom, not from Elias, from Dad. Short, commanding, no pleasantries. "Family meeting, 7 o'clock sharp. Major opportunity discussion. No congrats, no, how are you?" Just a summons. I felt the last 9 months of silence press against the glass of the screen. This wasn't a family dinner, it was a business solicitation disguised in china plates. I took a deep, centering breath, letting my shoulders drop. I typed the only reply necessary. Done. I didn't drive home. I parked near my satellite office, a sparse, quiet space in a mid-rise where no Sinclair had ever set foot. I set my repaired field bag on the desk: contracts, deeds, closing statements. My life organized in ink and paper, none of it dependent on their approval. I didn't feel rage or vindication, I felt surgical. I checked my ledger. Everything was solid: email, review, file, archive. The methodical process was my anchor. At 6:50 p.m., I finally rose. The city outside was fading into a cool Seattle twilight. I glanced at my reflection, a blazer creased from a day of work, hair pulled back, a tired, sharp jawline, a face that had earned every cent of the article's headline. My phone vibrated again, a cascade of congratulatory messages, a reporter requesting an exclusive. The nervous rattle of the phone on the wood felt frantic, desperate. I silenced it. Their noise is not my business. I turned my attention to the acquisition file I had secured 3 weeks prior. The Meridian Commons. A sprawling, historically undervalued retail commercial complex strategically positioned on the city's major arterial route. It had taken 4 months of cold calls, backdoor negotiations, and near sleepless nights to close the deal. And I knew from the hushed whispers in the city's inner circle that the Sinclair Development Group needed that property to finalize the centerpiece of their new Gateway District project. Without the Meridian, their entire financing structure, their empire, would wobble. I ran my thumb across the final signed closing statement. They wanted me at dinner to discuss an opportunity. Fine. I had my own. I slid the entire thick packet into my field bag, the action a soft, deliberate click. The office clock blinked 7:05 p.m. I grabbed the bag. The coat stayed on the rack. Too soft. I walked out, the hallway lights clicking off behind me. Driving toward their affluent neighborhood, every street corner was a map of my past. The bus stop where I waited in the rain while Elias had the car. The park where Dad taught Chloe to ride a bike, but never taught me to drive a stick. Every landmark felt like a tally mark. Here is where they weren't, and here is where I built. I pulled into the familiar circular drive at 6:59 p.m. Punctuality was my only remaining deference. The house glowed, a warm, deceptive beacon through the window. I saw the silhouettes. Chloe perched on the arm of a chair. Elias leaned back, a smug smirk evident even from this distance. Dad stood near the mantel, imposing. I opened the door, the cold air hitting my face. No need to knock. Dad filled the doorway, his shoulders squared as if addressing a board of directors, not a daughter. Right on time, Jade. No hug, no warmth, just a checkmark. The dining room table was set for a feast. Chloe, in a designer dress, swirled a glass of white wine. Elias tapped his fingers impatiently. Mom hovered near the sideboard, her smile brittle. I took the open seat, the one nearest the edge, the space they'd always assigned me. Dad cleared his throat. Let's be direct. Elias has devised a massive new project, the Gateway District. It's multi-phase, high return. We need an influx of serious, liquid capital to secure the cornerstone property. It's a prime retail strip on the arterial route. Elias interjected. We're letting you come in as a minority partner, Jade. It's a chance for you to see how the real money is made, a learning experience. Chloe lifted her glass slightly. It's a huge step up from flipping those tiny condos, sweetie. Mom placed a hand on my shoulder, heavy and theatrical. Darling, this is your chance to finally be part of the Sinclair legacy. I let their words wash over me, a tide of oblivious entitlement. Not a single, sorry about graduation, not a single acknowledgement of the headline. Just their plan. I reached for my field bag and gently placed it on the table. The soft, controlled thud silenced the room instantly. I did come for a discussion, I said, my voice steady, barely above a whisper. Just not the one you set the table for. Dad's brow furrowed. Jade, we're on a tight clock. Don't be dramatic. I unzipped the bag and slid a thick stack of documents onto the mahogany. They were clipped, ordered, and gleaming faintly in the candlelight. Gerald, a family associate sitting quietly at the end, gasped faintly. Is that the Meridian Commons? He whispered. The prime retail strip on the arterial route, yes. I confirmed. Dad sputtered, his face flushing crimson. That property isn't available. We had a verbal agreement with the owner's team. You had a verbal agreement, I corrected, my gaze unwavering. I had a signed contract. I pushed the acquisition documents forward. Their names reflected faintly in the glossy pages. Elias's chair scraped back as he leaned in. Chloe's hand flew to her mouth. Dad's jaw locked. Gerald reached out a trembling hand for the papers. You closed on it, he breathed. 3 weeks ago. I confirmed with a single nod. The entire Meridian Commons, which means your Gateway District, is a collection of empty lots, and no cornerstone property means no bank financing, no city permits, and no investors. Dad finally found his breath, his voice strained. Why? After everything we've done for you, Why would you sabotage the family? A family shows up, I replied, the words landing like small, heavy stones. You skipped my graduation. You skipped my life, but you rushed to the dinner table the second the headlines showed up. The silence that followed was suffocating, thick with unsaid recriminations. I collected the documents, tapped the edges precisely, and slid them back into the bag, zipping it shut with that familiar, fixed zipper. You wanted a discussion, I said, standing up and adjusting the collar of my blazer. This is it. You have the dinner. The development future of this city. That's mine. I walked out, the weight of the bag feeling significant, earned. No one moved. They were frozen in the aftermath of their quiet dismantling. The night air was a shock of cold. I paused on the driveway, letting the house's heavy false warmth leach from my skin. The porch light flickered faintly, just as it always had. I got into my sedan. Through the window, I saw the shadows moving frantically in the dining room. Gestures, arguments. Faces pale with disbelief, I heard nothing. My phone buzzed on the passenger seat. A single text from my mother. We didn't know how to fix things. Please don't hate us. I didn't open it. I started the engine. The drive home was a victory lap of memory. The streets where I walked for miles, the corners where I worked late into the night, they all looked smaller now, insignificant. Downtown, my tower stood like a monolith, my personal lighthouse. I parked, took the elevator up, and stepped into my penthouse. It was a space of quiet, clean lines, no hovering tension, no expectant silence, just space. Mine. I placed the field bag on the Stark kitchen island. I traced the repaired zipper, remembering the night I'd fixed it alone, telling myself one day what I put inside would be worth more than the family name back then. The silence was a burden. Tonight, it was a blank page. I crossed to the floor-to-ceiling windows and looked out over the city. It stretched before me, calm and honest. For the first time, I felt no need to explain myself to anyone. I finally understood. Silence isn't the penalty, it's the boundary you build to let your life breathe again. I turned off the lights, letting the room fall into a deep, earned darkness. Some stories begin the moment you stop waiting for the applause.